G'day folks, time for a weekend run. Got the old end bell housing out of the electrolysis tank and drying at the moment. Using a heat pump to dry it off like I did the full size housing. That one there will be next in. Did a bit of work on this thing on Sunday, pulled the head off and re-lapped the valves and everything, but it's still very low in compression. The ring gap's not ideal. It does start and run, but only just. Plus this floats around. It's terrible idle when that's floating around. Starts sucking air. And apart from that, it's complete. It's a 3.5 horse, so I should be able to get plenty of piston rings from another old 3.5 horse mower. Not much else happening at the moment. Got this housing done. I suppose the biggest problem with the Morris engine is that my supplier, was at Classic Motoring in Melbourne, is sold out of standard piston rings. So it might be a little while before I get rings and get this thing back together again. I just realised you can see where the bearing cap was hitting the bottom housing. That's what the knocking noise was. It was just tapping on there. I can probably run it with the standard rings, but I've got to try and free up. I think it's piston number 2. The rings are half stuck in it. Yeah, that one there. That ring's completely frozen in. And my last experience doing that on the Honda G400 or GV400 resulted in a broken ring. But luckily Volkswagen rings actually fit those engines. So yeah, I'm just after rings now. And the other problem I had was getting these things chrome plated and all the hardware. There's a $100 minimum. Oh, I think it's $100 or $150 on average minimum cost to get it done. So they're going to charge me like, I don't know, $10 a piece to do these. And unfortunately my work only gets electro-polishing of stainless done. They don't get chrome plating done. Otherwise I could probably sneak them in on an order. But I'm going to try and find a cheaper place, maybe somebody who can do it for about $50. I know there are places out there that can do it cheap. I mean, it's only a tiny batch of parts and they can mix them in with other bolts and things for prep and plating. Otherwise, if I get really stuck, I might just polish them up and hit them with some high quality chrome paint. I know Matty VT93 had some great stuff which he used on some computer case buttons and things, and it actually looked really good. So I might go that way if I can't get these properly plated. Yeah, just looking at CM website, classicmotoring.net.au. Yeah, clearly sold out of standard rings, but I'm actually contemplating maybe get a quote on boring the block, say 20 or 40 thou, because a set of pistons with rings is only another $100 more than a set of rings, almost $102. It's not too bad, and that would probably pretty much bring the engine up to standard to go back into a car. And I bored out 1100. We go as far as we can, even 60 thou. Bring up the capacity of the cylinder a tiny bit. It'd make it a pretty decent engine, but then I'll probably end up having to do the conrod bearings and everything. I'd make it a 100% rebuild, and that's a bit much for a stationary engine, so I'm going to try and get a hold of them and see if they can get another 1098 standard ring set, and we'll leave it at that. But still, for $77 it's not too bad. 3 comp rings per piston and an oil ring. The other issue with making it vehicle worthy is also redoing the head 100%. Likewise, timing sprockets will have to go along with the chain. Valves are $20 each alone and you need 8 of them. All new collets. The head would have to have the seats bored out and fitted with new inserts, because there is a bit of pitting and wear on the valve seats. So, no, I'm not going to make it vehicle worthy, but I'll at least make it run as a nice stationary. Put a cooling tower or something on it instead of a radiator. I'm thinking once I get this crane out of the way, it's currently blocked in by the electrolysis tank, I'll pull the front panel off this board and install this amp meter here on the side. This is an AC or DC amp meter. It'd be nice to have one mounted in there, so I can see how much load I'm pulling on it. Right now I'm running that heat pump and that's about 16 amps, so you can see that. Or even replace one on the air conditioner control box. Yeah, This meter's physically larger than the replacement one, but it'll give a better reading of how many amps are going through it. Try and open that up and show you how it went inside. I don't think I've shown the inside of this one. Have a good look at it. The voltmeter didn't like its current spike, so it blew up. It's supposed to be used with a big resistor or something, I suppose. 2 indicator lamps. I would like some much older style lamps to go with it, because everything else is old fashioned. Big amp meter. That uses a current transformer. It's going through the condensing unit supply. The one thing I haven't done is hook the heat pump supply up through it, because that heat pump there is run through the auxiliary switch. I've disconnected this at the moment, but the heat pump will come on when I throw it to the bottom, or the main 8.8 kilowatt condensing unit will come on when I throw it to the top. And that's all controlled by 24 volts. So there's no mains AC on this front panel at all. It's all 24 volt control. Obviously they're the main contactors, one for the big one outside and that one for the heat pump. I wouldn't have to use contactors if the air conditioners had low voltage control that I could tap into, but they only have high voltage control, so I can't safely operate a knife switch with 240 volts across it. Somebody will touch it one day and get fried, or I will. But yeah, that's the main supply cable coming in from the big board, and that's just a condensing unit. Now when the control switch is thrown, all it does is put 24 volt control power across that contactor coil. That's what the thin red wires represent. They're all control. So when I toggle this switch, up comes the outdoor unit, and that contact's closed. I open it, she turns off. Likewise, I can swap to the heat pump, and that's on. Only thing is I've got to hook that through as well. It's not indicating that anything's on, and the amp meter obviously doesn't do anything, but that's alright. And I want heat at the moment because it's getting cold out here. Baby meter. I'm just flushing all the old oil and muck out of this old bearing before I put the housing in the tank. I just realised it hasn't been replaced like the front one. This is still a cast babbitt inside an iron or steel sleeve, whereas the other one's probably been taken out and just remachined or bored out and then fitted with a brass bush or bronze. But this is a genuine babbitt bearing. I believe babbitt's a mixture of lead and tin and copper and other metals. It's perfect for making cold cast bearings, or not cold cast but cast in place bearings. You build a dam around it using an insulation material, set your shaft in as true as you can, or at least a pilot shaft, pour the metal into the top of the bearing housing and let it cool off, and you can pull all your dams and your shaft out and then line bore it to true it up. Very neat way of doing it. As long as they're lubricated, they last forever. This one here seems to be in pretty good nick too. I'll try and mic it up or borrow a set of bore gauges from my work and see if it's alright.